Women are powerful creators. The Align Women podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. I'm your host, Amy Evans. I have authentic, intimate conversations with my guests that highlight their paths to success, their struggles and accomplishments, and the things that currently excite, motivate, and inspire them to turn their visions into reality. Welcome to the Align Women podcast. I'm Amy Evans, your host and the founder of Align Women, a leadership and networking organization for professional women. This podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. With me today is my friend, Deb Hallberg. Deb's the CEO of the Pass the Torch Foundation for Women, an organization that empowers women through mentoring. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with her. Welcome, Deb.
Well, thanks, Amy. It's great to be here.
So let's jump in and talk about your description of your current role as the CEO of the Pass the Torch Foundation for Women. You called this your dream job. Mm-hmm. Tell me about your path to getting here and why you call it your dream job.
Well, thanks for asking that, because it is my dream job, but I didn't realize it until it kind of smacked me between the eyes and felt like my whole life I had been preparing for this. So let me back up to previously in my career. Earlier in my career, I worked in marketing and business development in a national law firm. And I loved that. I loved connecting people, meeting new people, building relationships, and bringing opportunities into the law firm to the lawyers that I worked for and with. And I just felt like that was just where my calling was, and that I was really solid there. About 15 years ago, my daughter moved to California to take an adventure. And at that point, I realized I was gathering my chicks, or these young professional women that were about her age. And what I thought was just sharing wisdom and knowledge with them, which in fact I was, but it was also mentoring. Mm. And so that came in at a really good time. Another reason I liked my job, because I had the opportunity to meet so many people, including these young professional women. And so I could also mentor the young women associates in the law firm, mm-hmm. and help them find speaking opportunities, making connections for them to help them grow professionally. Well, as time went on, I was loving this until I hated it, because, times change, and it became more about the money instead of the relationships. Mm-hmm. I'm a relationship person. That's what drives me, and to feel like a contributor. So I no longer felt like a contributor, but when someone comes to you and says, okay, Deb, it's your job to help me make more money. Mm. Well, that doesn't feel very good, because your personal value diminishes, or at least mine did. Mm. So I knew I needed to make a change. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I'd been mentoring these women, and I was a volunteer mentor with Pass the Torch for Women, and knew the founder, and I saw this opportunity come up, and I got in my own way, and I said, no, I can't check all those boxes. Mm. I can't do that. Until someone gave me a hard shove, and I mean a shove, not a push, it was a shove, and said, you need to apply for this, and you need to do it today. And so the rest is history. I took her advice, and I did. I've been with the foundation now for 3 years. I love it. And it wasn't until I started and I realized that this is what I have been building for, building to get to this place in my career. I wasn't ready to retire or do something on a volunteer basis. I felt I had runway left, and I wanted to do something that was impactful for women. I had been helping men my whole career. I'd been paid to help men, build their books of business and bring in clients. I felt it was time that I poured into women. Because when I started my career, there was no organization like this, and everyone at the top did not look like me. No. So I wanted to change it. I wanted to be part of an organization that does change that. And to, as you mentioned, an organization that empowers women through one-on-one mentoring.
So tell me, because the word mentor, I think, is a familiar word to a lot of people. Tell me what a mentorship relationship looks like, separate from what Pass the Torch for Women does, which we'll talk about your specific mentoring programs. But over your career, since this has been something that you have done professionally for a very long time, what does mentorship look like? What does it bring to someone that they don't get from other places in their professional or personal lives?
I love that question. Well, according to Webster, the mentor means to share wisdom and knowledge, but it's more than that. It's helping someone drill down. Maybe they're at the 20,000 foot view and they just can't drill down to what they really need to focus on because they're focusing on so much that it looks like they're trying to eat an elephant, and they just don't know that you don't have to eat the whole elephant in one bite. So it's navigating. For me, it was helping young professional women navigate some personal issues and a lot of professional issues. There were, losing a job, wanting to make a transition, sexual harassment, knowing if it's sexual harassment, going through a divorce, dealing with mental illness, having multiple births. It was a lot of different things, but it all was going back to, how is this going to impact my career? How am I going to get through this and still maintain my professional identity? So it's being willing to listen and hear, really hear what they're saying, and be empathetic, but also sharing the truth with them as far as what your knowledge is, and being open to bringing other suggestions to the table, but also introducing them to other people within my own network that I thought would be beneficial to them. As a mentor, you don't have to have all the answers. You just have to know, if you don't have them, say you don't have them, but where can you direct them? Who can you introduce them to? Other organizations, other individuals. So to me, it's more helping them, as I said, get down to that lower level to where, okay, what are the top 3 things you want to achieve? What are your top 3 goals? Let's break it down to that.
I get 2 big things out of what you described, 2 words that stand out to me. One is perspective. So the perspective of someone who has maybe been through a similar experience and can share, especially that it's not as much of a crisis as you think it is. There is a way to get through this, and also navigation. And then the other piece that I like that you mentioned, and sometimes these things are talked about separately, but I really look at them as a whole, is the concept of sponsorship, of someone really advocating for a mentee. So not just the sort of emotional and practical navigation of it, but actually saying, let me introduce you to somebody who's doing what you're talking about wanting to do, or who's had a similar experience, or who can make a connection for you that you might not otherwise be able to make. And I really like the active piece of that, because I think that's often what moves the ball forward. And I love that you mentioned that, because I think that's such an important piece.
Yes, I agree. And it was, I talk about the view because I had a mentee a couple of years ago who was worried about, this was in 2019, and she was going to graduate from college in 2021, and she was worrying about where was she going to live after she graduated and what was going to happen. And it was like, oh, we need to bring this down. What's going on? What's happening in the next 6 months and in the next 12 months? You don't need to worry about what's going to happen when you graduate. Not yet. Yeah. There are things that were in front of her that she really needed to focus on. And she was letting all this other stuff pile on to where she couldn't function. She couldn't see the path. And, a lot of people say, sometimes it's right in front of you and you can't see it. And that really was what she was going through. She just had such a big picture that she couldn't see what was right in front of her.
Yeah. So since you have worked professionally as a mentor with both professional women and professional men, what specific things do you find that women need as mentees that men didn't need when you were mentoring both sexes? I'm curious about your specific perspective for women.
Women needed, I think they needed more reassurance. They were lacking in some of that self-confidence that they were good enough and they did deserve that promotion. They should go after it. They did deserve the accolades, et cetera, in their work environment. Men, on the other hand, they had no problem with a lack of their own self-confidence. They knew they could do it. Yeah. It was more for them. It was more of not so much of sharing any wisdom or knowledge. It was more, who can you connect me to? They wanted those introductions, and they felt that I'm a great connector, and they felt that I could get them to who they wanted to meet. So it wasn't so much as mentoring them as more of, well, what can you do for me?
It sounds like more facilitation than support. Yes. And it's interesting. A lot of what you bring up is part of a book that absolutely changed my worldview, How Women Rise by Sally Helgeson. And I was honored to have her as a guest on the podcast. And she talks about 12 habits that women tend to carry with them that can limit them in their career advancement. And you hit the nail on the head, both in your personal story and in your description about not feeling qualified to apply for that job, to take that next promotion. Women tend to believe that if there's a job description, that they have to excel at every single part of that job description before they're even qualified to apply. Where men, I think the statistic is about 60%. If a man feels like he's got 60% of it, he says, I'm good, I'm going to go for it. And I think it's such an amazing book. And what you're saying really aligns with some of the things that she describes.
Yeah. So, that's so true. It's so true.
I want to talk about a question I asked you previously a hard lesson that you have had to learn in your career? And this is also something Sally mentions in her book, being heard, how to be heard, and your experience with finally being invited to be heard, and the change that made for you. I would love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Oh, yes, I would love to talk about that. The role that I was in, a lot of times I was early on in my career, I was invited to the table, but I wasn't supposed to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
So people who know me know that I love to share my opinion. It's just something that I have, I learned that from my dad. And I have an opinion about everything. But anyway, so it was, this was a little later, maybe more mid career, when I was invited to the table of an important meeting. And knowing that I often share my opinion, I sat there and I was just trying to take in everything that was being presented. And just, okay, how, dive into this and process what exactly is going on and what this proposal is about. And so I wasn't piping up. I was just listening. And when the presenter got finished, I'm at the table with several men, several attorneys, and they're not saying too much. And they look at me and they said, "Well, Deb, what do you think?" And it was then, and it's been about 15 years ago. It was then that I realized, okay, my opinion does count, and they are asking me about this, and they care what I think about this situation or this proposal that's on the table. And I felt then, okay, I've arrived. There were times earlier in my career when I was voicing my opinion, probably sometimes when I should have kept my mouth shut. But I felt like that if I'd been invited to the table, that meant I could use my voice. And it was then when someone did ask me, Deb, "You're really quiet. What do you think?" I knew then that I did bring value to that. To whatever was being discussed, and that my opinion was valued, and that they really were going to weigh that into the decision.
I love that story. I think that's such a good lesson for leaders, and such a simple question that leaders can be sure that they're asking of everybody in the room. And I don't think it's a coincidence that I just recorded a podcast episode with my very good friend, Carmen Bowen, who is the director of university relations at Saybrook University here in California. And I asked her, as a Black woman, what she wished white women like me understood about the Black experience. And she said that asking Black women their opinion in a meeting is an incredibly powerful way to help them to feel heard in situations where they don't always feel comfortable speaking up. And that question, you put it just the way she did, asking, what do you think, as a leader, can make people feel heard and give them the opportunity to share. And they may bring all sorts of experiences that tell them that it's not safe. And giving them the ability to do that is such a transformational thing. So I don't think it was a coincidence that within a week, I had that conversation, and then this conversation with you. And I think that's a really powerful thing for leaders to remember, that question.
Yes, I agree. And it's, if there's all men, or one type of people at the table, and maybe I was the only female at the table, the only woman, I think it's important to ask that person, whoever he or she is, to ask them, what do you think? we have one man on our board, and we constantly ask him, well, what do you think? Because we know he sees it through a different lens.
Mm-hmm. Such a great inclusivity question.
Yes.
So I want to talk about what Pass the Torch for Women Foundation does, because what you've put together, what the organization has put together is really a systematized program for providing mentorship to women. And I had never, before I was introduced to you, seen or heard anything like it. And because women in business and networking and building revenue and growing professionally is at the heart of what I do, I was really interested in your programs. And I will very happily say that I was recently matched up with a mentee, and we've had our first call, and it was absolutely wonderful and fulfilling and delightful. And so I am participating in this program. And I'd like you to describe it for our listeners so that they understand what this foundation actually does.
Well, I'm thrilled that you've been matched and that you've met and that it's working out, because that, of course, is music to our ears. Yeah. But we do have a very systematic approach, but we do meet women wherever they are in their career. So if they're what we call Project Grow, so that non-traditional adult female student. So if this is a woman age 20 to 70, maybe this is her first introduction to post-secondary education, and her academic institution identifies her as someone with real grit and tenacity that could use some support in achieving her goals, earning that wage above the poverty line, then she would be introduced into our Project Grow program, which is a cornerstone of Pass the Torch for Women. So some of these women, they already have an undergrad degree, but they're going back to school at age 50 to get another certification to stay relevant in the workforce. Or life has thrown them a real curveball, and at 50, they have to go get a job. And they just don't know what's out there, how to do that. So they're going to get some additional education to figure out, what don't I know? And then they become part of Project Grow, and we help them with some of those soft skills to get them where they need to be. So that program is our very early program for women, for a lot of our women, an introduction to Pass the Torch, if you will. But they have 5 months of theory-based module training. There's 4 different modules, 4 to 5 different modules that they will participate in. And then after that, they're matched with a mentor for 5 months. At the end of that period, then we take a month break, and then they can be matched again. So we don't look at this as when you enter the program that it's a one and done. And you can enter our pipeline at any point during your career. So then we have our developing professionals, so women that are early to mid-stage in their career. Perhaps they need to know how to negotiate, how to ask for a raise, how to navigate that workforce, knowing how to identify if this is bullying or some type of harassment. You know, you don't learn this in college, so you don't automatically start your first job and know how to do this. But then there's also, okay, let's do some financial literacy, because now you have your first maybe adult job where you are actually making that money. You're having a 401k. How do you manage? How do you budget that and maintain your competence and deal with any additional stress that comes through all of this? So then would be our developing leaders. Those are women who are mid-stage probably in their career, but they are on that leadership track, or they are on the cusp of entering that leadership track. So their challenges are going to be different than if they were a developing professional. So we do programming focused specifically directly on those challenges, but they are also matched with a mentor, as are those developing professionals. So all of those early groups up through the developing leaders are matched with mentors to help them navigate through whatever's going on in their professional life.
Mm-hmm.
We are not there to provide therapy or get them a job or financial advice or legal advice. There's a code of conduct for the mentees and the mentors to sign so that there is that clear understanding of what the boundaries are. So say now you have become that leader and you are now in the C-suite or in senior leadership. Now it's your turn, hopefully, that you will want to pay it forward, become a volunteer mentor, or to join our legacy leaders, which is men and women who are those individual donors and also mentors. So they want to give time and treasure to continue to empower women and help them achieve that success. So as you can tell, and I know that's a lot of information, but it doesn't matter where you are in your career. There is a place to plug in to our pipeline and stay in that pipeline and pay it forward when you're ready.
And that pay it forward is obviously the passing the torch, which
yes.
I love. And yes, that is a lot, but it is so beautifully thought through. And that was one of the things that really attracted me to your organization. And let's talk about the event that you have coming up, because I know that you're excited about that. So tell me what that is and when that is.
Okay. Well, October 21st from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Virtually is our Ignite the Torch event. It's our annual awards presentation to honor and acknowledge those rising stars. They're all overachievers, but those that have really gone above and beyond in being a mentor, a mentee, that developing professional, that developing leader. And we were not able to do that last year because of COVID. Like many things, those events did not occur. But we are so excited to be able to bring it back this year, award our scholarship to an individual that was nominated and then selected to receive our $1,000 scholarship that goes to a woman that is either just finishing her academic career, or maybe she is just starting into the workforce, but has really been a true champion for the foundation in all that she's done and the way she's participated. So again, you can find it on our website, and I know you have that information that you'll be sharing, but we are very, very excited. And so this year, since it will be virtual, we are doing a silent auction and a raffle. So as a way to raise some funds for our scholarships, because we didn't have it last year, and fundraising is a big deal for nonprofits. But again, just honoring men and women that have helped the foundation, have really been a catalyst for the foundation within their own areas. It's an inspiring and empowering event for everyone to attend.
I love it. I will be there. I love a good silent auction, so I'm excited to see what's in that. I want to wrap up. I give my guests the opportunity to ask me a question. Not everyone takes me up on it, but you asked me one that I really like, which is, what's my why? And it's always good to have that conversation. I had a guest on the podcast early on, a woman named Wendy Barlin, who's a CPA here in Los Angeles. And I did not know Wendy well. And she said something that struck me so to the core that I realized that was the perfect expression of my why. And she said, When women have their finances in order, when they have financial security, they have choices. And every time I say that, I still get goosebumps, which reaffirms that that's my why. In my life, I grew up with a single mom who was able to manage the finances to the point that we could stay in our house, and that she was able to raise me as a single mom for a long time. I have built my career around my financial security, and I have been very fortunate that that's allowed me to start businesses, to get through a divorce, and to do it without panicking financially. And so for me, providing women with a platform that allows them to promote their businesses, to learn about how to be successful in business, to network in order to grow their businesses and generate revenue. It's all really a layer on top of that undercurrent of why that I want women to feel financially secure, because I believe it allows them to make choices that are in their best interests. And I think previous generations of women, and still some groups of women now, get into situations where they don't feel like they're financially secure and can make the best decisions for themselves. So that is the why that is underneath what I do.
I love that because of our Project Grow, those non-traditional adult female students, about 35% are single moms.
Yeah.
And they're on some type of government assistance as well. And they're earning that wage above the poverty line. And as I mentioned, our goal is to get them earning a wage above that so that they can achieve not only that professional success, but that financial success.
Yeah.
To have that, what your mom did, what you've done with your career, seeing what that takes. And it's so important for women to be able to support themselves and have just that feeling of security. It's the weight of the world off their shoulders.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to leave that there because that was a lovely way to finish up our conversation. Where can people get in touch with you if they want to connect?
Well, they can reach me at my email address at DEB at passthetorchforwomen.org, or go to our website at www.passthetorchforwomen.org.
Perfect. And we will have that information posted in the show notes. And it has been an absolute delight to have you on the podcast, Deb. Thanks for joining me today.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. I've loved this, and I love what you're doing.
Thank you. And look for more conversations with more amazing women at alignwomenpodcast.com. Thanks for listening to the Align Women Podcast. You can find more episodes with more amazing women at alignwomenpodcast.com, and visit alignwomen.org to learn more about our leadership and networking organization. This is Amy Evans, and you've been listening to the Align Women Podcast.